The bride was already smiling when something felt wrong. Not visibly wrong. Not enough for anyone to stand up or speak, but enough that a few people in the front row stopped watching the ceremony and started watching her. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her. Still, controlled. Too controlled. From a distance, everything looked perfect. The dress, the flowers, the quiet elegance of the room. But up close, there was something else. A slight tension in her jaw, a delay in her breathing. And every few seconds, just for a moment, her eyes shifted, not toward the groom, but past him, toward the entrance. The officiant continued speaking, calm and steady, filling the room with familiar words. Words that usually meant something. Words that usually felt like a beginning. But the groom wasn't listening. Not fully. He nodded at the right moments. Smiled when expected. But his attention kept breaking, drifting. Toward the same place. The doors. Someone near the aisle noticed it first. A subtle movement. A shift in posture. Then another. And then a sound. Soft at first. Almost easy to ignore. A faint, uneven cry. It didn't belong in a room like this. Not here. Not now. The officiant paused, just slightly. Enough to feel it. Not enough to acknowledge it. The bride didn't move. But her smile changed. Not completely. Just enough. Like something behind it had slipped. The sound came again. Clearer this time. A baby. A few guests turned in their seats. Others stayed still, pretending not to notice. The groom froze. Not confused. Not surprised. Frozen. And then the doors opened. Slowly. No rush. No hesitation. As if whoever stood behind them had already decided this moment wasn't going to be stopped. Every head in the room turned. Except the bride. She stayed facing forward. Still smiling. Still standing exactly where she was supposed to be. Until the footsteps began. Measured. Steady. Echoing just enough to fill the silence the officiant hadn't. And then she appeared. Her sister. Dressed simply. Not for the occasion. Not to blend in. But not careless either. Intentional. In her arms a baby. Wrapped. Quiet now. Watching. No one moved to stop her. No one stepped forward. It was as if the entire room had silently agreed something was about to happen that no one could interrupt. The groom took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. Enough for the shift to be seen. Enough for the illusion to crack. And finally, the bride turned. Slowly. Not startled. Not dramatic. Just aware. Her eyes moved from her sister's face. Down to the baby. And then back again. Searching. Not for answers. For confirmation. Because something in that moment didn't feel new. It felt familiar. Like a truth she hadn't allowed herself to fully see. The sister stopped just a few feet away. Close enough to be heard without raising her voice. Close enough that there was no longer any distance between what was happening and what it meant. The room held its breath. And in that stillness, the story hadn't begun. It had already been unfolding for a long time. Just not here. Not where everyone could see it. In moments like this, they don't happen without something leading up to them. Without signs. Without silence. Without someone, somewhere, knowing more than they said. Before we go further, if you've been following stories like this on Chaos of Lives, let us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, take a moment to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because what happened in that room was only the surface. For a moment, no one spoke. Not the officiant. Not the groom. Not even the bride. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt full. Heavy. Like something had already been said, just not out loud. The sister stood still, the baby resting quietly against her shoulder now. No apology. No hesitation. Just presence. And that, more than anything, unsettled the room. Because this didn't look like a mistake. It didn't feel like an interruption. It felt intentional. The bride's eyes didn't leave her. There was no panic in them. No immediate anger. Just a quiet, searching focus, like she was trying to place something that didn't quite fit. The groom, on the other hand, couldn't hold still. His hand moved to his side, then to his jacket, then back again. A small, restless motion, but impossible to ignore once seen. He looked at the sister, then quickly away, then back again, as if he didn't know where it was safe to look. A few guests began to whisper now, not loud enough to disrupt, but enough to confirm something had shifted, because people weren't asking what was happening. They were asking, "Did you know about this? Is this hers? Why is she here?" And underneath those questions, another one, quieter but sharper. "Why does he look like that?" The officiant finally cleared his throat, attempting to regain control of the moment. But even that sounded uncertain, like he wasn't sure whether he should continue or step aside. The sister adjusted her hold on the baby, carefully, protectively, and then she took one small step forward, not toward the bride, toward the space between them. That detail didn't go unnoticed, because she wasn't choosing a side. She was placing herself directly in the middle of something that already existed, something no one else could yet see clearly. The bride's voice, when it finally came, was quiet, steady, but not soft. "What is this? Not who. Not why. What?" As if the situation itself didn't make sense yet. As if naming it too soon would make it real. The sister didn't answer immediately. She looked down at the baby, then back up. And in that pause, something shifted again. Because whatever she was about to say, it wasn't going to be simple. It wasn't going to fix anything. The groom took a step forward this time. Quick. Controlled. Too controlled. "Not here," he said, low enough that only a few people near the front could hear. But the tone carried. Not defensive. Not confused. Restrained. As if he already knew exactly what this was. And exactly what it could become if allowed to continue. That was the moment the room truly changed. Because confusion started to turn into something else. Recognition. Not of facts, but of feeling. Something had been hidden. And whatever it wasn't small. The bride looked at him then. Fully. Not as a partner. Not as someone she was about to marry. But as someone she was trying to understand. And for the first time since the ceremony began, she didn't look certain. The sister finally spoke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But clearly enough that the words didn't need volume. This shouldn't happen without the truth. And just like that, the ceremony was no longer a ceremony. It was a question. One no one in that room could answer yet. Why would she come now? Why bring a baby into a moment like this, unless it meant something more? Why did the groom react like someone exposed, not surprised? And why, through all of it, did the bride seem less shocked than she should have been? Because if this was the first time she was seeing this, then something didn't add up. And if it wasn't the first time, then what, exactly, had she chosen not to see? Long before the wedding, before the guests, the vows, the quiet tension in that room, there had been a version of her life that felt stable, predictable, carefully built. She wasn't the kind of woman people worried about. Not impulsive, not reckless. She moved through life with intention. A steady career, a quiet routine, the kind of structure that didn't invite chaos. And for a long time, it worked. Until the period she rarely talked about. A stretch of months where things had quietly unraveled. Nothing dramatic, nothing visible from the outside, but enough to leave a space in her life she hadn't planned for. That was when he appeared. Not suddenly, not dramatically, gradually, introduced through a mutual connection. Easy to talk to. Attentive in a way that didn't feel forced. He listened, and more importantly, he remembered. Small details, passing comments, preferences she hadn't even realized she'd mentioned. At first, it felt comforting, then necessary, because he didn't just enter her life. He fit into it. Seamlessly, almost too seamlessly. He adapted to her routines. Adjusted his schedule to match hers. Showed up exactly when she needed him, sometimes before she even asked. It was the kind of consistency she had been missing, the kind that made questions feel unnecessary. And so she didn't ask many, not in the beginning. Her sister was different. Where she was structured, her sister was fluid, unpredictable, the kind of person who could disappear for weeks and return like nothing had changed. There had always been a contrast between them, not just in personality, but in how people treated them. She was the dependable one, the one people trusted. Her sister was complicated, not unreliable, but harder to understand. And over time, that difference had created something unspoken between them. Not distance, not exactly, but a quiet imbalance. When the relationship began to grow serious, her sister noticed first. Not with excitement. With hesitation. She didn't say much at the time. Just watched. Observed the way he spoke. The way he moved around her. The way he inserted himself into conversations that didn't involve him. Small things. Easy to dismiss. But her sister didn't dismiss them. And that, in itself, became a problem. Because concern, when it isn't clearly explained, can feel like something else. Jealousy. Interference. Doubt. There was a dinner. Early on. Nothing significant on the surface, just the three of them. That night would be remembered differently by each of them. From her perspective, it had gone well. He was polite, engaging, attentive. Her sister had been quiet, but that wasn't unusual. From his perspective, it was forgettable. But from the sister's side, something had felt off. Not obvious. Not something she could point to directly. But there had been moments. Brief pauses in conversation where his expression shifted when he thought no one was looking. A question he answered too quickly, then corrected later. A glance that lingered just a second too long when attention wasn't on him. Nothing that proved anything, but enough to stay with her. After that night, the sister became less present. Not abruptly, gradually. Missed calls. Short replies. Plans canceled without clear reasons. At first, it didn't feel unusual, but over time, it formed a pattern. And patterns, when noticed too late, feel different. They feel intentional. He, on the other hand, became more present, more involved. He didn't just support her. He began to shape her environment, helping with decisions, offering suggestions, positioning himself as someone who could be relied on, not just emotionally, but practically. And she allowed it, because nothing about it felt wrong. It felt helpful, until the small inconsistencies began. Nothing that disrupted the relationship, just details that didn't quite align. Times he said he was somewhere, but couldn't recall specifics later. Names mentioned once, then avoided. Moments where he seemed distracted, then overly attentive to compensate. Each one, on its own, meant nothing. Together, they formed something harder to define. There was one evening she brought it up. Not as an accusation, just a question. He didn't get defensive. He smiled, answered calmly, reassured her, and then he shifted the conversation. So smoothly she didn't realize it had happened until later. That detail stayed with her. Not enough to confront again, but enough to remember. Her sister, during that same period, sent a message. Late at night. No greeting. No context. Just one line. Are you sure you know everything? It didn't sound emotional. It didn't sound urgent. It sounded careful, like someone choosing words they didn't want to explain. She read it more than once. Started to respond. Stopped. Because the question itself felt unnecessary. Of course she knew everything. Didn't she? The engagement happened soon after. Quickly, but not impulsively. At least, that's how it appeared. He planned it carefully. Chose a moment that felt personal. Meaningful. And when she said yes, it felt like the natural next step. Not rushed. Not forced. Just expected. Her sister didn't attend the engagement dinner. No clear reason. Just a message. I can't make it. Nothing more. That was the first time it felt like something might actually be wrong. Not with the relationship, but around it. Something just outside her view. Something she couldn't fully see, but couldn't completely ignore either. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, that feeling didn't disappear. It changed. Subtle. Quieter. But present. Like something waiting. Not to begin, but to surface.